Hello, BookTube. You know, you might have to take my word for this, but it's a decidedly pleasant feeling to roust a bunch of hungover, muscular teenagers out of bed and make them go book shopping with you. It really does perk up a day. And I had occasion recently to do that. I loaded big, broad shoulders with lots of heavy books, and I wanted to show you a bit of that haul. It's a thrift shop used book haul. Quite a bit of it I can't show you because it's meant for you, for some of you. So, but that still leaves a small stack of books that I wanted to show you that I got because I really like them. So it'll double as a recommendation. And we'll start with political history. This is 1912. It's by James Chace, and it's the story of the 1912 U.S. presidential election, which was going to be smooth sailing for William Howard Taft, the sitting president. He was in charge of a well-oiled and powerful Republican political machine that was simply going to put him in office again. His challengers were Eugene V. Debs, who it doesn't really count, and Woodrow Wilson, a bookish academic who, for some reason that has never made any sense to me, managed to amass quite a following. And that was going to be it. Taft was not a good campaigner at all. In fact, he hated campaigning. But he gave a good stump speech, and the machine was fully behind him, and that was going to be it. And then something unexpected happened. Theodore Roosevelt entered the race as a third party, a fourth party, if you count Eugene V. Debs. He entered the race as the standard bearer for the Bull Moose Party and split the Republican vote right down the middle between himself and his former best friend, William Howard Taft. And that threw the country into turmoil, created editorial cartoons by the bucket load, and handed the election to Woodrow Wilson. And this book is a great little history of that election. I wish it was 5 times longer. It could easily have been, and it's a really but as it is, it's nice and short. So if you find that sort of thing interesting, it was the very first seismic political upheaval of the 20th century, and as such, kind of interesting. I was very glad to find it. I naturally think that its characterizations of both Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft are a little on the shallow side, but its narration of the political infighting, oh, so good. And then the next two are on a theme that's we go from William Howard Taft to another theme on this channel that you'll recognize right away, and that's dogs. The first one is Your Dog is Your Mirror. This is by Kevin Behan, and it's a fascinating dog book. It's a dog book in which he stresses that the real skill that Canis familiaris, that domesticated dogs have developed over millennia, is not instinct or loyalty or anything like that. It's the ability to read human emotions. The ability not only to read human emotions, but to map their own emotions onto those emotions, to become emotional parasites, rather than just food parasites. He doesn't stress the theory very strong throughout the book. It's also full of great vignettes about dog ownership and the great factoids about domestic dogs in general. But the theory is there enough to make you think, and to make you either disagree with it. I disagree with large parts of it myself, or you'll just be nodding, thinking, yeah, this makes a lot of sense out of some of the behaviors of my own dog that I hadn't understood until I read this book. It's every season, every publishing season sees dozens of dog books, and most of them are really dumb. And this was a winner. So if it interests you, and you like me, you have a little shelf in your library of books about dogs, this is one to have on the list. I will do my best to remember to note all of these down below. And then the next one is the second dog book. What is a dog for? Look at that little guy. And the subtitle is The Surprising History, Science, Philosophy, and Politics of Man's Best Friend. This is by John Homans. And it's just a study of the various roles that dogs play in human life and the roles that we can tell they've played in the past. But it's so engagingly written. It doesn't really break any new ground, but it's so engagingly written that you won't stop turning the pages if you're a dog person. Absolutely not. And like Your Dog Is Your Mirror, it's something that actually belongs on that dog shelf. I have one, and I was happy to find copies of both of these. I don't have them. I got advanced copies of both of them, and God knows where they ended up. So I was happy to find these. And then the next one isn't really for me. I'll keep it. But this is the one example I'll show you of something that's actually for you, and it's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is the omnibus edition. It's a paperback, but it's in fairly perfect shape. It's a little tiny bit of foxing on the corners, but otherwise no. And I have a couple of different sets of these, but I saw this and it was free. And I thought, surely one of you would like me to mail this. And if that's true, feel free to let me know in the comments field. I don't have this particular paperback anthology, so if none of you want it, it still has a home, but I'd be happy to mail it out. So you let me know. And then this is something also I had a reader's advance copy of, and then I had the Bound Galley, and then I had an ARC, and that was it. That was the end of the gravy train for this particular book. And I remember thinking, having seen it in bookstores, that I really wanted the hardcover, and I never got one. That sometimes happens. It's always annoying, because it always seems to happen when I want the hardcover. And it's The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell, which I think is his best book, his most ambitious and most successfully realized book. And the hardcovers, it's extra heavy cloth. It's got no folderol on the back, just the author, no silly blurbs or anything like that. It's got the deckled edges, and I longed for it when I would pick it up in bookstores. I'd say, oh, there's a finished copy I wish I had, but I never ran a review of it, and its publicist knew that. And after a while, months passed, and then at that point, you'd feel downright weird emailing the publicist and saying, oh, can I have a hardcover copy of that book I haven't reviewed? It becomes obvious when you do something like that. I try never to do something like that, because it becomes obvious that you're just asking for a book for your library. And some publicists are better with that than others, but it muddies the water. So I never did get it, and just thought, and in fact, I remember thinking, yeah, it'll show up at the Brattle or somewhere else. It'll show up used. It took its bloody time doing it, but there it is. There it is. A nice, solid, heavy hardcover of this. Perfect for a rereading, which I will give it. And then the last two books are biographies. Two fantastic biographies of American innovators. And I wanted to show them to you and highly recommend them if you should see them either in hardcover at a used bookstore or in paperback at your Barnes & Noble. The first one is Tom. This is by Lyle Leverich, and it's a biography of Tennessee Williams. That decides, right from the get-go, right from the cover art, you're going to see a Tennessee Williams that doesn't look quite like you think of him. The weathered alcoholic's face and the Fu Manchu mustache and all that, the 1,000-mile stare of the eyes. This is the boy that Tennessee Williams was when he first started to show his ungodly, otherworldly genius at stagecraft. And this biography is wonderful in terms of readability. I got it and read it and loved it, and no idea what happened to the copy that I had, but I was very happy to find another copy. And if this was readable, the next one, the last book, the one we'll finish with for today, is one of the most readable modern era biographies that I've ever read on anybody. And you'll recognize it. Of course, you'll recognize it right away. It's Walter Isaacson. It's Steve Jobs. His big, bright white, definitive, infinitely quotable biography of someone that he doesn't portray dishonestly. He had tons and tons of interviews with everybody who knew Jobs, all of his friends and lovers and enemies, his endless amounts of enemies. And the resulting portrait is of an absolutely fascinating, mesmerizing a-hole. And that is not Isaacson is great. He's a great biographer. He did a great biography of Albert Einstein. And he also co-wrote a book called The Wise Men, that's even bigger than this, that is a masterpiece. I don't know how to recommend it, because its subject matter gets more abstruse and obscure with every passing decade, and was kind of abstruse and obscure to start with. So I hate to say it, but if I were to read off the names of the subjects of the book called The Wise Men, I don't know that most of you would even recognize any of those names, even though they're the architects of the world that your parents grew up in. But this doesn't suffer from that problem. Everybody knows that face. And everybody has an Apple product or has made a decision not to have one. They are ubiquitous, and they changed modern life. My own life would be almost unrecognizable without Apple products. And I'd be willing to bet that's true for most people watching this. So it's fascinating to read. It would be fascinating to read anyway, a full-length, authoritative biography of the man who was the spearhead of that technological vision. But this book goes way beyond that. It is electrifyingly readable. There's a great quote or a great scene in every segment of every chapter. It's no wonder to me that I have seen this book on the college undergraduate shelves of young men, especially, who read nothing else. You ask them, have you ever read any other books? Nothing comes to mind. Maybe 48 Laws of Power, and that's it. But this, they gobbled up. Now, I worry that a lot of those young men are reading this thinking that this is a way to behave. That if I'm going to be as successful as Steve Jobs, I should act like Steve Jobs. When the book kind of goes out of its way to make the point that the opposite is true. And that you shouldn't be just a gratuitous, grating, condescending a-hole to everyone you meet. That you shouldn't do that. That Steve Jobs succeeded in spite of doing that, not because of doing that. But one way or another, apart from any misuse that the book could be put to, and whether or not you think you're interested in a computer salesman, you should read it. I, of course, have virtually no personal or instinctive attachment to any of the subjects connected in this book, and I've read it twice and could not stop, could not put it down. And when it first appeared, the critical response that it got was amazing. Just one great review after another. People, long, thoughtful reviews, contentious, opinionated, moved reviews in every critical venue anywhere in the English-speaking world. It was incredible. I didn't do it. I didn't join in, but everybody else did. Oh my God, it was amazing to watch. And not many books provoke that. And you read it, you just give it, 10 chapters and you'll see why. Oh my. So if you find it, at a thrift shop or a garage sale or a used bookstore or whatever, or if you're seeing it at the library and you're wondering, I don't know, do I have to be a computer geek to like it? Grab it right away. As far as the art of biography goes, even for this author who is great, this is a masterpiece. And there's our author in younger days. And that's it. That was a hungover thrift shop haul. There's Steve Jobs, there's Tennessee Williams, there's the Bone Clocks. Sorry, I've got used to piling books like this. There's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I'm perfectly happy to unload on anybody, if one of you wants it. I'm just expecting that the first person who will ask for it will say, yeah, I'd really like that. Will you send it to me? I live in Andromeda. Is that going to be expensive? That's all right. I'm accustomed to it now. And then 2 books on dogs. What is a dog for? And your dog is your mirror. And then a slim but punchy history of the 1912 presidential election. And that is it. So I'll see you soon, BookTube, and I will try, if not remind me, to put notations for all of this stuff down below. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.